Today, I want to talk about the possibility of Xbox Game Pass headed to Nintendo consoles in the future, because while that sounds like an outlandish idea on the surface, it's actually something that Microsoft has communicated they would be interested in the past, and due to a recent interview, they are now doubling down on that strategy as something that they really want to see happen. Now, we have to unpack this from all angles, because just Microsoft saying that they would like to bring Game Pass to Nintendo consoles clearly doesn't mean that that will be a green light and Nintendo's going to say, yes, bring your premium gaming subscription service onto our platform, because it's going to have a lot of implications for Nintendo. But one thing we do know about Microsoft and Nintendo as of late is that they've been working very good together, unlike the direct rivalry that Sony and Microsoft have with the Xbox and PlayStation trying to win the majority of the gaming market share. Microsoft tends to view Nintendo as less of a direct threat and rather someone who operates within their own space in the gaming sector, but is not a direct head-to-head competitor in the way that Sony is, especially with the fact that Nintendo has leaned into their own direction when it comes to console capabilities and the type of tech that they're running, where there's a lot of third-party games that come out on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S today that just aren't in the conversation for the current specifications of the Nintendo Switch hardware that we have now. Now, that may change with the release of the Switch 2, but for the most part, Nintendo and Microsoft have been seen working together more and more in recent memory. We know that we have the release of things like GoldenEye, which of course Rare, who is now a Microsoft-owned developer, had rights to all of the assets and the different components that you would need to bring that game back. In fact, it's Microsoft, Nintendo, and MGM that had to get together in a room to greenlight that deal. It's why we saw it launch on NSO and Game Pass at the same time. We've also seen Microsoft working together with Nintendo with the release of things like Banjo-Kazooie, and most recently we got the announcement that Jet Force Gemini is headed to Nintendo Switch, and that's outside of having things like many first-party published Microsoft titles available on Nintendo platforms and games like Minecraft actually leading the market on the Nintendo console by a landslide compared to what Microsoft even sells on its own console. So they are a valuable partner for Nintendo. And following the completion of the Activision Blizzard merger, we know that there is a legally binding ink deal already signed and in the books that has Microsoft agreeing to support the Call of Duty franchise on Nintendo consoles for the next 10 years. And now you have top-level Microsoft execs clearly stating that their big end goal with Game Pass is to have it playable on as many different screens as possible, regardless of if you view them as a competitor to Xbox or not, really foregoing the focus of make sure you are playing on the Xbox console to experience Microsoft Xbox content, and rather going the strategy of pay us the Game Pass subscription monthly and we will happily give you access to all of these games. But we have to also unpack the implications of what it would mean from Nintendo, but first we have to get on the same page with exactly what was stated here, so let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed typed up article together. Xbox exec says Microsoft wants to bring Game Pass to PlayStation and Nintendo. Its mission is to have its first-party experiences on every screen that can play a game. Tim Stewart told attendants at the Wells Fargo TMT Summit that the company's ultimate goal is to bring all of its content and services to every screen that can play a game. This mission is designed to reap higher profit margins from Microsoft's gaming division than has traditionally been the case with its relatively low-margin console business, the exec said. And this was one of the motivating factors behind the company's $69 billion acquisition of Call of Duty creator Activision Blizzard, which it completed last month. For us, when we think about the business, gaming as it relates to Microsoft and with Activision, operating leverage and margin expansion is definitely a piece of that puzzle, Stewart said. At the highest levels, you go from what was a lower margin third-party entity that we sold on our store to a high margin first-party business. So when you think about the Xbox component of Call of Duty, you go from that low margin business to a high margin business. Then what you do is expand and say, we're now driving high margin sales on PlayStation and Nintendo. Prior to its purchase of Activision Blizzard, Microsoft agreed 10-year deals to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms and to keep it on PlayStation consoles should the acquisition be approved by competition regulators. And that's really lastly where we're going in this business, is the expansion of operating leverage, where we think about placing our bets, Stewart added. First-party subscriptions, advertising, those are all high-margin businesses that we want to expand into. And what you'll hear from us more and more is a bit of a change of strategy, and again, not announcing anything broadly here, but our mission is to bring first-party experiences, our subscription services services to every screen that can play a game. That means smart TVs, that means mobile devices, that means what we would have thought of as competitors in the past like PlayStation and Nintendo. We're going to NVIDIA GeForce Now, their gaming subscription service. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has previously expressed a desire to take Game Pass everywhere, although he said in 2020 that other competitive platforms aren't really that interested in having a full Xbox experience on their hardware. And that last line from Phil's quote in 2020 is really where I want to dive in and spend some time, because while Microsoft, of course, will give the thumbs up and go ahead to have Nintendo bring Xbox Game Pass onto Nintendo Switch 2 hardware or whatever's around the corner, Nintendo's going to look at this from a very different perspective, because if they greenlight that and you can download the Game Pass app within a Nintendo Switch or next generation Nintendo console, all of a sudden you have access to 150, 200, whatever the game total is, plus games that are available just at your fingertips. That's going to create a lot of overlap with what Nintendo sells in their own eShop. There are plenty of overlap games within the Game Pass selection that exist as standalone purchases from Nintendo eShop right now. So there's two solutions to this. Microsoft would either have to pay Nintendo such a hefty amount to have that service available on their platform that Nintendo views that as an opportunity to offset some of the profit losses that they will see from consumers not buying the games directly from them. Maybe Nintendo gets a big revenue share of the Game Pass subscription fee itself, and that's something that they would entertain the idea to. Or there is the possibility that Nintendo would agree to a modified version of Game Pass, not supporting all of the third-party content that is on there that Xbox has access to today, but rather have something that is only Xbox first-party exclusive titles that you cannot already purchase on the Nintendo Switch. I could maybe see some kind of world where a weird red tape scenario would happen like that, but then you have to talk about the subscription price. Is it less because it's less content? And does Nintendo really want to have something that is a potential Netflix of games available on their platform when their direct strategy for the foreseeable future, from what I can tell, is to still do the individual pricing model? Now, you can argue that Nintendo Switch Online is their first step into something of a gaming subscription service in terms of adding in their old retro content behind a paywall that you have to stay subscribed to in order to experience those titles. Some people want Virtual Console to come back, some people are more of a fan of NSO, but Nintendo is dabbling into that direction, but they are not anywhere near to the level of commitment to it that Microsoft is. And when you're talking about modern games that sell for $60 or $70 a pop, and we've seen Nintendo not even discount their games after they're out for 6 or 7 years on the current Nintendo Switch hardware, it's one of those things that for Nintendo, that is such a massive profit driver that I can't really see them giving up a large portion of that to Microsoft, unless if they just make the deal so sweet that Nintendo can't pass up. Whether or not Sony would entertain that, I think it's literally that much more unlikely. I could maybe see a world where Nintendo and Microsoft partner up in some way, shape, or form to bring a limited version of Game Pass, or maybe the full version of Game Pass, and Microsoft pays them off enough to do so. I don't, however, think that Microsoft would ever ink that same kind of deal with Sony, because they're just more of a direct threat to each other in their eyes. So Microsoft's strategy is sounding interesting, with them wanting to bring Game Pass to everything, but remember, this is what they want, not necessarily what Nintendo wants. And so where I land on this whole idea on, is Nintendo consoles going to support Game Pass in the future, that remains to be seen, and I'm leaning more towards the side of it is less likely than likely, although you can never say never with a mega company like Microsoft. Now they own Activision Blizzard. They are a juggernaut, no doubt, so we will see what happens in the future. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions around Microsoft's strategy here, and them specifically name dropping wanting to bring Game Pass to Nintendo. Are you a fan of that idea, and would you personally as a consumer sign up for a service like that? Or are you like me and you think that maybe Microsoft wants to do it, but likely Nintendo will not allow it in any way, shape, or form, or maybe it would have to be a modified version of Game Pass if they did ever entertain that idea? And now that this Activision Blizzard Microsoft merger is all wrapped up, what future games are you most excited to hopefully see brought back and supported on Nintendo consoles, now that we should presumably see them working together that much closer than they ever have before? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.